What is going on, everybody? You're listening to Chopping Up the Meat, the one and only podcast of your dreams.
Chop it up.
Today you are with
Right guy.
And CC.
and myself, Big Mike. In this week's episode, we'll be talking about our man Kurt Vonnegut
Kurt.
and his book Slaughterhouse 5,
There he is.
as well as an analysis of chapters 1 through 3, which are very, very weird.
Yeah.
They were a bit unordinary, a bit unorthodox at the beginning. But as we, go more in depth with it, I think we'll discover some stuff. That is why we're here to help you guys, the listeners, if you guys are wondering. And we'll be right back to have this discussion right after this quick commercial break. So do not go anywhere. That was the Rolling Stones to Give Me Shelter. Bit of a coincidence there.
Yeah, it really ties into the book, especially chapter 1, as Vonnegut talks about taking shelter from the bombings in Dresden. Chapter 1 is
Chapter 1 is weird.
little odd, yeah. Vonnegut, it really seems as if it was like an epilogue to the book.
Yes.
He talks about, the bombings in Dresden, and it seems like he really wrote the book before chapter 1 and went back after he was finished with his work to write chapter 1. And, he really put a lot of emotion into it, as he talked about.
A little post-book writing.
Exactly. And he even mentions that the war stories and events are all true. So
Man had major PSD.
really
PTSD, I should
took
say.
a toll on his
My
life.
mistake.
And it swings into chapter 2, talking about Billy Pilgrim and his life events, even his draft to the military, almost being pronounced dead at battle. And then his mental state was really taking a turn for the worse
Oh yeah.
after his plane crash in 1968. But this guy definitely had something going on upstairs. A little post-traumatic stress disorder was definitely taking a toll on him. But his daughter began to worry about him after he featured on a talk show host where he mentioned that he was abducted by aliens, and he was really putting a lot into this story as if it was actually true. So you could tell that this guy definitely needed some help mentally. And chapter 3 talks about Billy Pilgrim's mental state even getting worse. It's fading bad as he's falling in and out of dreams when he goes back to work. And it's taking him back to life events in the war as he was captured by Germans, and it kind of gives the readers an idea of what the American soldiers endured after being taken hostage by German troops.
I mean, it seems like he was time traveling all over chapters 2
Right.
and 3. Like, he was going from one place to another. Like, how he was visiting his mother in one year and he was somewhere else in another.
Exactly.
It was very, very weird for him to do that. And so, we'll be right back for this commercial break.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, old and good.
So now we're going to talk about how, chapter 1 was almost like a preface to the novel than part of the novel itself, and why it seemed like such an autobiography that it did. It is clearly autobiographical, and it exists on a different plane from which the bulk of the rest of the book is.
Exactly.
More talk about how his life and how emotional it was and how unforgettable it was in a sort of way, and not really a positive way.
Yeah, like I said, he put a ton of emotion into this book, and it was a lot of...
So, Vonnegut makes himself a character in his own narrative. As he embeds an actual presence within the text, he begins weaving the first many threads in the story of Billy Pilgrim, which many believe Billy Pilgrim is actually Kurt Vonnegut. And so, his decision to make a conceptual, constant part of the story rather than an introduction reflects how deeply entrenched his life is in the story that the novel relates, perhaps how deeply entrenched the story that the novel writes into his own life. In chapter 1, Vonnegut's narrative conception is very intricate. by his description of the wallpaper roll on which he outlines, and the story does not come to light until Vonnegut decides he can sacrifice the pleasant, organized outline for the true confusion entrenched in his war story. To convey the horror of his experience in Chapter 1, and how he put so much emotion into it, and how he went through all his life events,
Right.
he adopts a writing method that it's very confusing to most readers, and they have a hard time understanding why he's writing this way.
I mean, unless you're really a veteran, you can't
Exactly.
you can't really
relate
empathize.
to getting shot at or getting
Exactly.
bombed to.
Nothing like it.
So like this structure, it continues all the way throughout the novel, and as protagonist Billy Pilgrim drifts back and forth in time, as we said before, like how he time traveled, quote unquote, and how he was in one place and another.
Yeah, he
and,
was messed up.
and so like several passages in Chapter 1 suggest that time plays a very vital role in Vonnegut's story. Remember, guys, the Lumberjack song that he created like an endless loop for all that.
Right.
Additionally, as Vonnegut waits he's in Boston in a hotel waiting to leave for Dresden to get shipped off. Time refuses to keep going. It continues to pass. It seems to him as though years are dragging by, or
Right.
like everything is very slow motion and slow. So the novel's closing words invokes the idea of time as cyclical, like and never ending rather than linear. So it's not like a time period. It's never ending. What was that? You guys ever seen Groundhog Day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
I love Bill Murray. An idea that proves crucial to the novel's protagonist, Billy Pilgrim.
Yeah.
And so, upon that, we're going to go to another commercial break. We're going to give you guys a good time to just, examine what we said.
Reflect on what we've been talking about. So we'll be right back.
I hurt myself today to see if I.
Hey guys, we're back. That was "Hurt" by Johnny Cash, one of my favorite songs, to be honest.
Johnny Cash is
He's the GOAT.
This is the Rye Guy. I'm going to take you on a trip through memory lane. A lot of listeners, I had a caller call me earlier. They asked, why does Vonnegut not tell Billy Pilgrim's story in chronological order? And how he uses important moments in spastic bursts.
Yeah.
Vonnegut does that because he uses the time jumping as a unique way of storytelling to show how the war affects Billy. The significance of certain moments in life all connect somehow to the war. And then there's always questions about how any attempt to change life is insignificant or futile to Billy. It's because the war showed Billy how insignificant the attempt to change life is. The darkness and bleakness of the war made life seem almost meaningless to him.
Yeah, that was
And then
it's a rough time in life.
when you have PTSD, your brain. I was watching one example of that. I see a lot of war veterans having to keep their backs towards something because they feel as comfortable because they know no one's going to come from behind them or do anything.
and they get
Because I remember I was watching a show and some guy came back from Iraq. Obviously PTSD, and he every time he sat down on a stool or something, he had to have his son come stand behind him
Right.
because he was.
Sad.
It is. Yeah. In
sad,
all
yeah.
reality, it is sad because they have to go through that.
Yeah, my grandfather even was a Korean War veteran, and unfortunately he couldn't join us today to talk about his experience. He passed away a couple years ago, but he would always tell me stories about his memories in Korea and how he never wanted to even think about the stuff that happened because it was so vile. And he
Yeah.
couldn't even. It's sad though.
It affects the brain greatly, and I don't think people realize that as much as they do. They acknowledge that PTSD is a real thing, but they don't. I'm not saying I'm just saying ordinary citizens. They're they're just scared or something. No, it's very psychological for them.
I agree.
And it just affects them in a great way, and it actually affects our family a lot too.
I mean, you change your personality
Yeah,
completely. You're not the same person after
A
you.
lot of them don't talk anymore.
And the sad thing when you go into that, I had some callers who were saying, why should we take this guy serious when he's talking about aliens and he's insane?
Yeah.
Just because sure, there's obviously some post-war traumatic disorders that are affecting his mind and causing him to, per se, be insane. But however, just because the war has affected him like that doesn't mean he shouldn't be taken seriously.
Right.
What he's had to offer and his ideas and the stories of the war are still very much integral to how we should perceive war and what it does to soldiers.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to conclude our podcast for today, for
Thanks
this
for
week.
joining us.
Thanks for
listeners.
joining.
Hopefully our analysis
Good
and
time,
discussion
good
of it
time.
helped you get a better perception of chapters 1 through 3 and how actually weird they were really written. Excuse my stuttering.
Tough to explain, so I hope
Yeah,
you
so
guys got something out of
Thanks
it.
for listening this week. We greatly appreciate it. We love all our listeners. And one more time, I'm Big Mike,
All right, guy.
And CC.
and this is Chopping Up the Meat, signing off.